Hello and welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It, with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed already. I couldn't do this without you. Today is Doctor Who Sunday and I am reviewing the lowest Tom Baker rated episode from his first series, which was Revenge of the Cybermen, which was voted by you, the subscribers. If you would like to check out the current poll, head on over to the community page where you can actually vote. Before I get into it, I will actually say that I was surprised that this was the lowest rated episode for his series. If you would like to know where I actually get the consolidated ratings from, it's from a website called The Mind Robber, which I will link in the description for you below. As normal, there will be a million and one things that I miss out in the review, so please leave your comments below as to your thoughts on the Revenge of the Cybermen and anything that I may have missed. Revenge of the Cybermen starred Tom Baker as the Doctor. It was written by Jerry Davies with edits done by Robert Holmes. It was directed by Michael E. Bryant and it aired to a consolidated audience of 9 million people. I got so many screen grabs from this, so I decided to just chuck them all on because it was just too good to miss. The Doctor, Sarah Jane and Harry end up on Space Station Nerva. The TARDIS isn't there, so it's a waiting game as it had been drifting in time back to them. Now, whilst they're waiting, they start exploring the space station and they find numerous dead bodies scattered everywhere. Something devastating has happened. They later discover that the crew had all died of plague, which was caused by a cybermat. Unfortunately, Sarah Jane is also attacked by the cybermat, so in order to save her, Harry and Sarah get beamed to Voga. They find out they are on a planet made of gold, and metal so powerful that it can actually stop the Cybermen. Now, unbeknownst to Harry and Sarah, a cybership docks on Space Station Nerva, and it becomes a race against time to stop the Cybermen from committing the most horrendous deed. Now, I said earlier that I was surprised by the fact that this was a low-rated episode. 9 million in consolidation is not by all means low, but it was for Tom. Meglos, though, Meglos holds the honor with 4.7 million in consolidation, but I'm not here to review Meglos. That's another video altogether, and we haven't even got there yet. It's not even been voted for yet. I think overall, this is generally a good episode, although it does actually have some flaws with it. And I'm not going to utter the grievous swear words that I said on the Sense Sphere about Tom's Doctor, okay? We're not going there, which aren't that sacrilegious, actually. But it certainly sent the chat into a frenzy, so much so that around 5 minutes later, they were still talking about what I said and not focusing on the stream. By the way, go and check out the Sense Sphere, a great channel where I'm a regular panelist when I'm not walking on thin ice, when I talk about Tom Baker. Now, before I get into the Cybermen, I want to air my grievances with the sonic screwdriver. Yes! It's the Sonic again. Thankfully, it was used once. However, the annoyance behind it is, for this review, was that it got the Doctor out of danger almost immediately. Now, this could be in part because there were some rewrites. It is possible that may have been the case, so they were looking for something very quickly to take its place as to perhaps what they were rewriting. Now, the Doctor is locked in a room and he's being gassed. I would have rather that he had picked the lock or done some kind of other heroic escape rather than using the sonic screwdriver. However, the cliffhanger of the episode dictates that the Doctor is needed to save Sarah. So I guess it is a case of will the Doctor escape in time to save Sarah, or will they both die? How good are the cliffhangers in this story? Episode 3, Harry not knowing that the Doctor is strapped up to explosive and he tries to unbuckle it. Episode 1, the Doctor being gassed and Sarah being attacked by a cybermat, and probably the best one of the 3 is in episode 2, where the cybership docks into the space station. They march into the station and promptly shoot the Doctor. I still think that the case of Androzani still has one of the best is the Doctor dead moments, but this one certainly takes it on, with the cyber leader saying, "The beacon is ours," with the Doctor lying on the floor. Now, of course, we actually find out that the Doctor's simply just been stunned, but you're left to think, is he actually dead? The thing is about Cybermen's story, if the audience knows that it is a Cyberman story, then they spend most of the time wondering when the Cybermen are going to come into the story. Well, At least that's what I find. And this story, when I first watched it a long time ago, was certainly no exception to that. We also wonder how they are going to be introduced and what they are going to look like because they are ever changing. So, what do you think of this version of the Cybermen? Now, I don't mind them. I think the Earthshock ones are slightly better, and I love the Tomb of the Cybermen versions as well. I'm not so keen on the Cyberman leaders or the Cyber leaders helmet in this one. The Cybermen always struck me as a uniformed unit. They are emotionless and their robotic suits are supposed to be the same. I also think, and maybe I am actually being too judgmental here, that the actors and extras couldn't walk in these costumes particularly well. They looked a bit restricted at the knees, and I felt like that actually hampered them a fair bit. Their portrayal was really good, and I completely forgot that this cyber leader was not David Banks. My brain went into the rewatch with my head saying David Banks, and I got a bit of a shock when it wasn't his deep tones. And of course, it was Christopher Robbie. Now, he is very good, although sometimes his inflections and cadences carried with some rise and fall with emotion, which isn't that conducive with the Cybermen. Now, the voice modulation with these Cybermen also sounds a bit off, and I actually think that they worked on them for later episodes, for example, Earthshock. It was a lot better there. So, because we, the audience, know it's a Cyberman story, there's not much point in introducing them slowly for a big reveal. So, they have the Doctor work it out early on with the attacks from the Cyberman in episode 1. We also learn one of, in my opinion, one of the more creative ways to destroy a Cyberman: gold. Such a simple thing, yet the main reason why the Cybermen want revenge on Voga, the creativity behind the Cybermen was to save their people, wipe out all emotion, make them all the same, yet they failed to make themselves totally indestructible and very susceptible to an allergic reaction of sorts to gold. Absolute genius. Having said that, one of the biggest questions that I have, other than them taking revenge on inhabitants of Voga, is why do the Cybermen take the risk if they're allergic to gold? Surely, if they blew up the planet, then it would actually risk the gold going absolutely everywhere and it wouldn't help them. Now, I know they all got blown up anyway, but it was just my head saying, well, if they really are that allergic, why? Why are they doing this? Is their revenge that paramount that they really just want to take that risk? Insane. And now this is also something else that I always think about when I watch this episode. Now, whilst I know that the Cybermen aren't necessarily familiar with the different versions of the Doctor, why would they not know who the Doctor is when they find out who he is? If you understand what I mean. They didn't seem familiar with him, unless, of course, my continuity in my head is out of whack. Maybe they just don't know about regeneration yet. I'm not 100% sure, but it just actually threw me through a loop. Now, I don't know if anyone found this, but I found that some of the actors' diction was actually off in this episode. I don't have a specific example, but sometimes it was a bit soft spoken. Now, of course, this is from an era when the reshoots of a scene were a lot rarer for an actor. Reshoots back then were much more for the TV crew as opposed to the actors, and actors were not that type of priority when it came to filming if mistakes were made. If mistakes were made, they generally focused on the crew doing their reshoots and getting their timings right, because it's what the crew did that essentially affects the story. And this is why we had a lot of flubs and name mistakes with the William Hartnell Doctor, which in the end, they ended up working into his version of the Doctor. And of course, we also know that filming time slots were always cut off early. I believe it was 10 p.m. And I would just say this: have you ever wondered why actors started swearing when they made mistakes? And it was because of the lack of reshoots that they used to have. The makeup for the Vulgarians is pretty good. I think they're called Vulgarians. I don't know. I think I've probably totally butchered that. I'm sorry if I have. Now, this story actually shows how the Doctor Who is on a budget, on a cheap budget, and it actually puts the modern day show to shame right now. This story, of course, like I said, is not without its flaws writing wise, but the effort that they put into the costumes, yes, including the Cybermen, because they were reimagined from the Troughton era, and it's clear that thought went into it. The sets, the props, everything was paid attention to in great detail. They spread their budget across the entire series without blowing it on an enormous giant blue dog that doesn't appear until the end of the Pyramids of Mars anyway. But they didn't go that far. We have to wait until we get to the Pyramids of Mars to see if they actually do that. That rock slide, absolutely brilliant. The scale of the cyber ship, fantastic. Even the fight sequences were not half-hearted. The early stuff for Tom Baker is what I would actually call his best stuff. He is so much more fun as the Doctor here than compared to his later series. He's a bit abrupt, yes, but I actually like that quality in the Doctor, and he's very weird. Very weird. A very clear alien, which is not what I actually can say for today's show of Doctor Who. Even to the point where in this episode, in this serial, he turns round to a dead Cyberman and randomly says, "Dusty death, out, out," which was a weird, which was really weird because he put it with a really weird hand movement and facial expression, and he was just being strange for a minute or two. Although, I will be fair, I call it with the shooty Doctor, so I'll do it here. The fourth Doctor was being a tad irresponsible here, as he had to be brought back to his senses by Sarah Jane, who is also brilliant in this episode. Does the Tom Baker Doctor sound like the Doctor in this episode? Yes. His best line when he goes back for Sarah when she had returned to the space station. He said, "She risked her life to save mine. The least I can do is accept the same risk for her." That is a true Doctor moment. He has a fair few of those anyway in this episode alone, but that moment, the only person he thinks about is Sarah Jane. His priority is his companion who is in danger. He's being a hero. We don't really get that with today's version of the Doctor. He's too busy lusting after somebody else. He even calls Harry an imbecile, which is not becoming of him. Would it be something that I say his Doctor would do? Maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. But in this case, he doesn't actually mean it in a nasty way. It was quite comical because Harry realized he hadn't assessed his situation well at all. And that's actually very telling with companions. It is quite a contrast to Sarah in many respects. Harry has the slight foolishness, but not in a bad way. Harry's intelligence lies with his medical knowledge. The way this episode builds is very good. It's not a quick plot, but it's good to introduce the Cybermen early because obviously we know we're getting the Cybermen. I like the idea behind the Doctor and his companions, plus guest stars, finding out the information separately in the lead up to the culmination of this episode, and they all bring their information together. That whole battle sequence with the Cybermen is actually pretty good, but I think I liked the fights in and around the control console. They looked very well rehearsed and very intense because the Doctor and Sarah are on the space station and Harry is on Boga. They leave the ending down to the knuckle in this episode, and that's what makes this episode actually work. My only question that was left was what happened to the commander after Harry, Sarah, and the Doctor left, because he was left on the planet Voga. He didn't come back with Harry. I know that I have missed things out, but please let me know your thoughts on the episode below. Head on over to the community page to vote on the latest poll as well. I'm also going to be away for 3 weeks at the end of October, so I'm gathering some episode suggestions for those weeks. So please add any suggestions that you would like to see, because it will be different from regular content, and you can let me know by replying to the pinned comment below. Now remember to chat about it, don't shout about it. Like the video if you would like to like the video. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.